Welcome to the Happy Nightmares podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Happy Nightmares podcast. So glad you're here with us today, and I cannot wait to get into today's topic. I actually did a social media poll, which I've never done before, to decide which topic I was going to cover in this week's episode. Now, the loser of that poll is going to be in next week's episode, so we will still get to talk about it, but I just looked for some help in what you guys wanted to hear as this next episode, and overwhelmingly, this was the topic that won out. So here we go. In a relatively barren patch of northeast Utah known as the Uinta Basin, just southwest of Fort Duchesne and nestled in alongside a decent-sized offshoot of the Uinta River, sits a 512-acre plot of land known as Sherman Ranch, which is currently owned by a man named Brandon Fugel. Upon first glance, this property may seem no different than any other cattle ranch, as there are many in the state of Utah, but this is no ordinary slice of the American dream. Sherman Ranch, better known these days as Skinwalker Ranch, is a breeding ground for claims of paranormal activity of all types, including UFO sightings, strange animal mutilations, unnaturally large animals, humanoid cryptid sightings, strange mobile magnetic fields, and more. The first reports of UFO sightings in the Uinta Basin were made public during the 1970s, and stories about Skinwalker Ranch first cropped up in 1996. Terry and Gwen Sherman took ownership of the property in 1994, and they didn't stay there long. After what was surely a very long 18 months on the property, the Shermans sold the acreage away and shared claims that they had seen mysterious crop circles and UFOs and systematic repeated mutilations of their cattle in an oddly surgical and bloodless manner. They also claimed to have seen mysterious large animals, in particular a wolf that was 3 times the size of a normal wolf. Terry Sherman supposedly fired a rifle at the beast multiple times, and it had no impact on the creature whatsoever. Terry also spoke on occasion about one thing that really spooked him to the point of wanting to sell the property, and that was the voices. Terry heard voices while he was out walking his dogs on the ranch. He described the sounds as speaking in a language that he did not understand. They seemed to flow in with the wind or from dark places, and he had the distinct feeling that they were invoking something or speaking some sort of ritual. When the Shermans sold the ranch, it was snatched up by UFO enthusiast Robert Bigelow. Bigelow had intentions of documenting all of the strange activity on the property in an official capacity under the name the National Institute for Discovery Science, or NIDS. He set up round-the-clock surveillance and eventually released a book titled Hunt for the Skinwalker: Science Confronts the Unexplained at a Remote Ranch in Utah. And can I just say, that is a really long title for a book. Not very catchy. Might want to rethink that one. Anyway, on the night of March 12th, 1997, a biochemist named Colm Keller, who was working with the NIDS, claimed to have seen a large humanoid creature spying on his research team. The creature was stated to be about 50 yards away, watching from a tree about 20 feet off the ground. Here's a quote from Keller. "The large creature lay motionless, almost casually, in a tree. The only indication of the beast's presence was the penetrating yellow light of the unblinking eyes as they stared fixedly back into the light." Keller fired a rifle at the creature, and it disappeared, leaving behind a large track in the snow about 6 inches in diameter, which looked unusual. It was a single large print, with 2 sharp claws protruding from the rear, going a bit deeper in the snow than the rest of the print, and based on the depth, it had to have been a very heavy creature. It is interesting to me that they mention the eyes being the only indication of the beast's presence, and the only evidence left behind was a footprint, closer to a bird's than a human's, and yet they claim it was a humanoid creature. Perhaps this was just the way the story was reported, but I would love to hear about this encounter more from Keller himself. Outside of the book, very little was actually made public about what Bigelow and his team did or found at the ranch, although there was a report in 2017 which linked the NIDS with a Pentagon program for investigating UFOs. Bigelow owned the property until 2016, when Brandon Fugal purchased the property for $4.5 million, which is quite an inflation from the mere $200,000 that Bigelow paid for it in 1996. So no matter what he found, no matter what the profits were from that book, he made a boatload of money just in real estate transactions from purchasing that property for $200,000 and then selling it for $4.5 million. In an interview with KSL TV, Brandon Fugal stated the following: "What really interested me in this property was a conversation I had with certain scientists that approached me in 2015 that had been advising Bigelow. He had acquired a piece of property that was supposedly the site of more paranormal activity and high strangeness than anything else being reported around the country at this time. Since taking ownership of the property, Fugal has admitted to recording phenomena that has defied all natural explanation. According to an article from October 26, 2020, Eric Bard, an investigator, said that a wide range of theories have emerged as to what might be behind the various unexplained events, including focused energy sources either above or below the ground, a portal or some sort of interdimensional phenomenon, a technology of unknown origin, or even the idea of a sentient, precognitive, non-human intelligence. Several other people who were interviewed talked about experiencing strange phenomena and negative occurrences happening to them upon returning home after staying at or researching at the ranch. This is known as the hitchhiker effect, as these people are basically picking up bits of paranormal energy and taking these bits home with them. On June 18, 2020, a reporter and photographer traveled to Skinwalker Ranch to conduct interviews to see if anything strange would happen during their time there. They were informed that it was likely they wouldn't see anything happen. While it is a hotbed for paranormal occurrences, they aren't happening 24/7. There is more quiet than there is action. But on this particular day, they lucked out. Shortly after they arrived and entered through the front gate, they experienced a malfunctioning GoPro, one of two cameras they were using for an interview with Eric Bard inside the ranch. The device would suddenly not connect to the phone that was controlling it, which was just a couple of feet away. They were unable to figure out what caused the issue, and eventually moved outside to get some scenic shots of the ranch. A drone was deployed for aerial shots, and when it landed, they experienced another unexplainable connectivity issue. The screen prompt read, "Calibration failed. Too strong magnetic interference detected. Ensure there are no magnets or metal objects nearby." They were unaware of anything in the vicinity that could be causing a magnetic field capable of causing such interference. Just then, Bard came outside and informed them that RF, or radio frequency sensors, inside the ranch had been lighting up suddenly in a way that they hadn't been since the crew arrived. Bard said to think of this as a range across the radio dial, and here it's as if several stations all at once became very loud. In the middle of rural farmland in the Uinta Basin, no one could come up with a logical reason why this would be happening, and the timing of it coinciding with the drone issue was interesting. It was made more interesting because a couple of minutes later they noticed something in the sky that looked like a contrail shadow. Contrails are the long, thin clouds that form behind high-jet aircraft engines. When those clouds cast a shadow on the clouds beneath them, that is considered a contrail shadow. It's not a particularly rare sighting, although in this case there was nothing in the sky visible to them that would have created the contrail in the first place. Lucky for them, the cameras were rolling. They went back inside to examine the footage and saw a slender, cigar-shaped object in the sky move vertically, straight up into the sky in such a manner that didn't make sense for a bird or a plane. The crew experienced drained batteries for pieces of equipment during their time there, and also a second drone connection issue in a different part of the ranch, and out of frustration, one of them called out, "I know this sounds crazy, but will you please allow us to fly the drone?" They set the drone down on the ground, and within seconds, it connected to its controller and took flight. There could be explanations for any of these things, but all of them occurring so close together along with the UFO sighting certainly causes one to stop and think for a moment. But the unexplained occurrences didn't stop there. While filming on the property, they witnessed a pheasant being chased by another bird. It flew into the front gate and broke its neck and died right there in front of them. During another interview, they left an MP3 recorder and a flashlight on the floor inside the homestead, along with a GoPro camera to see if anything would be captured. The only evidence they saw was a small flame that seemed to shoot out of the ground during a wind gust. To their knowledge, there was nothing chemically relevant in the soil that would explain such an event. Let's talk for a minute about the adopted name of the ranch, Skinwalker, which comes from Navajo tribal folklore surrounding shapeshifters similar to werewolves. Skinwalkers were evil witches who could transform themselves into any creature of their choosing. The Navajo are not the only Native American culture to support the existence of such beings, but for this particular geographic location, a Navajo influence makes the most sense. Some customs believed that skinwalkers are produced when a medicine man abuses magic for evil and corrupts the natural order of things. This medicine man is seemingly rewarded by the darker forces of the world for his contributions to chaos, with powers of transformation into any animal of their choosing, and also to possess other members of their tribe. Another potential origin of the skinwalker is that any person, man, woman, or child, becomes one if they perform any kind of deep-seated taboo, which is along the same lines as the Wendigo curse, although I believe the Wendigo curse primarily involves the eating of human flesh. Some iterations of the Skinwalker story are tied to the thought that these creatures were helpers of divine beings. In Navajo stories specifically, the Nagloshi worked for the holy people, helping them to train humans in the blessing way. Nagloshi were supposed to abandon the mortal world with the holy people, but a few decided to stay behind. The greed and corruption that fueled their desire to remain a part of the mortal world resulted in a transformation into malicious beings with divine abilities, making them sort of the Native American equivalent to fallen angels. If you are interested in learning more about Skinwalker Ranch, you are in luck. There's a series available right now on the History Channel called The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, and here's a summary of the series. For the first time ever, history is gaining full unprecedented access to one of the most infamous and secretive hotspots of paranormal and UFO-related activities on Earth, Skinwalker Ranch. Anchored by never-before-seen footage of the ranch and what it contains, the series will feature a team of scientists and experts who will conduct a daring and thorough search of this infamous 512-acre property located inside Utah's Uinta Basin in an attempt to find out the who, what, and why behind more than 200 years of UFO sightings, bizarre animal mutilations, and paranormal-related mysteries. Utilizing the latest and cutting-edge technology from lasers and ground-penetrating radar to drone thermography and more, the team will apply hard science and make shocking discoveries while going further and risking more than anyone has done on the ranch before. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Happy Nightmares podcast. Check out our sister YouTube channel, Happy Nightmares, for horror fiction narrated by yours truly, true accounts of encounters with the paranormal, dark instrumental music, and more. The link is in the description of this episode, or just visit youtube.com/havehappynightmares. If you haven't already, check out the video version of this podcast. Just search Happy Nightmares Podcast on YouTube to enjoy photos and video clips associated with the topics we are discussing, and subscribe so you don't miss the next drop. Also, if you feel so inclined, please like the video and leave a comment. Let us know what you think about the many claims of paranormal activity at Skinwalker Ranch. Are you a believer? If your podcast platform allows you to rate the podcast or leave a review, please take a few minutes to do so. It will help this podcast show up for more people in their suggested shows and genre searches. For information on upcoming topics, both for this podcast and the Happy Nightmares YouTube channel, follow us on social media. We are at Have Happy Nightmares on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. We are at YT Happy Nightmare with no E on the end on Twitter. Have a topic idea or a story idea, or just want to give me a piece of your mind? Shoot us an email at havehappynightmares@gmail.com. Thank you everyone so much for being here and listening to this episode of the Happy Nightmares podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion and can't wait to talk at you again in the next episode. Until then, and as always, happy nightmares.
This has been the Happy Nightmares podcast. Visit our YouTube channel, Happy Nightmares, for more of the creepy content you crave.